Hey guys, tonight we begin with God's covenant with Abraham, Genesis 15:17. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey. Picture the ancient land of Canaan, where the sun sets slowly over rolling hills dotted with olive trees. The air carries the gentle fragrance of wild herbs and the distant sound of sheep settling for the night. In this peaceful landscape, we find Abraham, now an old man with weathered hands and eyes that have seen many seasons come and go. As darkness falls, Abraham sits quietly outside his tent, gazing up at the star-filled sky. The night air is cool and still, broken only by the soft crackling of dying embers from the evening fire. His heart feels heavy with questions that have lingered for years. God had promised him descendants as numerous as the stars, yet here he is, childless and aging. The Lord comes to Abraham in a vision, his voice like a gentle breeze carrying comfort across the desert night. "Fear not, Abraham, for I am your shield, and your reward shall be very great." These words float through the stillness, wrapping around Abraham like a warm blanket of divine assurance. Abraham's voice trembles slightly as he responds, speaking his deepest concern into the quiet night. "What can you give me, seeing I remain childless?" The vulnerability in his question echoes across the centuries, a timeless human longing for purpose and legacy. The Lord's voice comes to Abraham once more, gentle as the evening breeze that stirs the tent flaps. "Do not fear, Abraham," the divine words whisper across the starlit desert. "I am your shield, your very great reward." Yet Abraham's heart carries the weight of years and unfulfilled promises. His voice, weathered by desert winds and time, responds with quiet longing. "Sovereign Lord, what can you give me since I remain childless?" The stars above seem to shimmer with understanding as Abraham speaks of Eliezer, his faithful servant from Damascus, who would inherit all he owns. But God's response flows like cool water over parched ground. "This man will not be your heir, but a son who is your own flesh and blood will be your heir." Then comes the moment that painters and poets would capture for generations. The Lord leads Abraham outside his tent, where the vast canvas of night spreads endlessly above. Ancient constellations tell their silent stories as God's voice carries across the stillness. "Look up at the sky and count the stars, if indeed you can count them. So shall your offspring be." In this sacred moment, beneath the infinite dome of heaven, Abraham believes. His faith rises like incense into the night air. The scriptures tell us that the Lord credited this faith to him as righteousness. Here, in the quiet desert night, surrounded by nothing but sand and stars, an eternal covenant takes shape. The gentle wind carries whispers of nations yet to be born, of blessings that will flow like rivers through time itself. The divine voice continues to speak through the quiet darkness, revealing glimpses of what lies ahead for Abraham's descendants. In this sacred moment, God draws back the veil of time itself, allowing Abraham to see beyond the present into the distant future. The vision unfolds like a gentle river flowing through the centuries. God's voice carries the weight of prophecy as he speaks of Abraham's offspring, describing how they will become strangers in a land not their own. For 400 years, they will dwell in that foreign place, serving others and facing hardship. Yet even in this difficult revelation, God's promise remains steadfast. Abraham listens with a heart both heavy and hopeful as the Lord continues. After these long years of trial, divine justice will come upon the nation that has oppressed his people. They will not emerge empty-handed from their affliction, but will leave with great possessions, carrying with them the wealth of their former captors. The vision shifts, and God speaks tenderly of Abraham's own destiny. He will not witness these future trials personally, but will go to his fathers in peace, his life complete and blessed. He will be buried at a good old age, having fulfilled his purpose in God's greater plan. Through the smoky darkness, Abraham sees his descendants returning to this very land, but not yet. The Lord explains with infinite patience that the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet complete. Divine timing moves according to principles beyond human understanding, waiting for the perfect moment when justice and mercy align. As this prophetic vision draws to a close, Abraham remains in reverent silence, absorbing these revelations about generations yet unborn. The weight of destiny settles gently upon his shoulders, but it is not a burden. Rather, it is the crown of divine purpose that will guide his steps in the days to come. The morning sun filters through the tent walls as Abraham stirs from his rest, his heart still carrying the weight and wonder of yesterday's covenant ceremony. The air is cool and fresh, carrying the scent of dew on grass and the gentle sounds of the camp awakening around him. Sarah moves quietly beside him, her presence a comfort as always. The years have deepened the lines around her eyes, but her spirit remains strong. She knows something sacred has occurred, can see it in the way Abraham's gaze turns toward heaven with new certainty. As the days pass, Abraham finds himself walking often to the place where God appeared to him. The ground there feels holy beneath his feet, marked by the presence of the Almighty. He speaks to his servants with renewed authority, knowing that the promises of God rest upon his household. The flocks grow larger, the tents multiply, and still Abraham waits. 13 years drift by like seasons changing, each one bringing its own rhythms of planting and harvest, of births among the animals and the quiet passages of time that mark a nomad's life. Then comes the day when God appears again. Abraham is 99 years old now, his beard white as wool, his hands weathered by decades of desert life. But when the Lord speaks, Abraham's heart quickens like a young man's. "I am God Almighty," the voice comes, rich and encompassing. "Walk before me and be blameless." The words settle over Abraham like a blessing, calling him to a life of integrity and faithfulness. And then comes the gift that will echo through generations. "No longer shall your name be called Abram, but your name shall be Abraham, for I have made you the father of many nations." Abraham, father of many. The new name carries within it the promise itself, a declaration of what God will accomplish. In the gentle repetition of these syllables, Abraham hears his destiny being spoken into existence. The covenant deepens, becomes more personal, more intimate. Even Sarah receives her new name, no longer Sarai, but Sarah, princess, mother of nations. The promises expand like ripples on still water, touching not just Abraham's immediate future but generations yet unborn. As evening approaches, Abraham sits quietly, letting his new name settle into his soul like water soaking into thirsty ground. The covenant between God and Abraham deepens with the introduction of a sacred sign that will mark his descendants for generations. Abraham, now 99 years old, receives this divine commandment with the same faithful obedience that has characterized his entire journey. The sign is circumcision, a physical mark that will distinguish Abraham's lineage as the chosen people of God. This ritual, performed on the 8th day of a male child's life, serves as an eternal reminder of the covenant established between the Almighty and Abraham's descendants. Abraham understands that this sign carries profound meaning. It represents not merely a physical act, but a spiritual commitment that binds his household to the covenant promises. The mark in the flesh becomes a permanent symbol of the eternal agreement between God and his chosen people. Without hesitation, Abraham gathers his household. He circumcises himself, his son Ishmael, who is 13 years old, and every male in his household, including servants born in his house and those acquired from foreigners. The patriarch's immediate obedience demonstrates his complete trust in God's commands. The ritual takes place in the quiet of the desert camp, where the sounds of daily life fade into gentle stillness. Abraham moves with reverent care, understanding that he is participating in something sacred that will echo through countless generations. Each person who receives this mark becomes part of the covenant community. As the sun sets over the ancient landscape, Abraham reflects on this new dimension of his relationship with God. The physical sign serves as a constant reminder of the spiritual promises that have been made. Through this mark, every male descendant will carry the covenant in their very being. The peaceful desert night embraces the camp as Abraham completes this sacred task. The covenant now bears both the promise of blessing and the sign of belonging. In this quiet moment, the foundation is laid for a people who will be marked as God's own throughout all their generations. The tent flaps stir gently in the evening breeze as we find ourselves drawn to another sacred moment in this ancient story. Sarah sits quietly in the doorway of their dwelling, her weathered hands folded in her lap as she listens to the soft murmur of voices nearby. The golden light of late afternoon filters through the fabric walls, casting peaceful shadows that dance softly around her. Abraham has been speaking with 3 visitors who appeared at their tent during the heat of the day. There's something different about these men, something that makes the very air feel charged with holy presence. Sarah prepared bread for them, kneading the dough with practiced hands while Abraham selected a tender calf for the meal. The simple acts of hospitality feel weighted with significance in this quiet desert home. Now, as the conversation continues just beyond where she sits, Sarah hears words that make her heart flutter with an emotion she thought had died long ago. The visitors speak of a promise, of a son who will be born to her and Abraham within a year's time. At 90 years old, with her husband approaching his 100th year, the very idea seems impossible. A soft laugh escapes her lips before she can stop it. Not a bitter laugh, but one touched with wonder and disbelief. How can such things be? Her body has long since passed the time for bearing children. The seasons of her life have moved far beyond such hopes and dreams. Yet something in the tone of these visitors suggests they speak not of human possibilities, but of divine promises. The desert wind whispers through the camp, carrying with it the scent of wild herbs and the distant sound of sheep settling for the night. In this moment between doubt and faith, Sarah embodies the tension that lives in every human heart when confronted with the impossible made possible through God's power. The cool evening breeze carries the scent of desert flowers as Abraham walks slowly through his camp, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. The tents of his household stretch before him like gentle hills in the moonlight, each one representing a life under his care, a responsibility he carries with quiet dignity. His steps are measured and thoughtful as he moves between the sleeping quarters of his servants and the pens where sheep rest peacefully for the night. The soft bleating of lambs mingles with the distant call of night birds, creating a symphony of contentment that speaks of God's provision. Sarah emerges from their tent, her silver hair catching the starlight as she approaches her husband. Without words, she takes his arm, and together they walk toward the edge of camp, where the desert opens into endless possibility. Their footsteps create the gentlest whisper against the sandy ground. They pause beside a small grove of tamarisk trees that Abraham planted years ago. The branches sway softly in the night air, their leaves rustling like quiet prayers. Here, surrounded by the evidence of growth and patience, they reflect on the journey that brought them to this moment. The stars above seem closer tonight, each one a reminder of the promise that still echoes in Abraham's heart. He remembers the voice that called him from his father's house, the assurance that guided him through uncertainty, the covenant that transformed his understanding of faith itself. Sarah's hand finds his as they stand in comfortable silence, 2 souls who have learned that trust is not a destination, but a way of walking through each day. The desert night embraces them with its ancient peace, whispering stories of all who have looked up at these same stars and found their way home to faith. The promise of land stretches before Abraham like an endless tapestry woven from divine intention. In the quiet hours when the desert air carries whispers of eternity, God's voice comes to him with gentle certainty about the inheritance that awaits his descendants. The land that God shows Abraham extends from the great river of Egypt to the mighty Euphrates, encompassing territories that seem to shimmer with possibility in the morning light. This is not merely soil and stone, but a sacred gift that will cradle generations yet unborn, a place where covenant promises will take root and flourish. Abraham walks slowly through valleys that will one day echo with the laughter of children who carry his name. He sees olive groves that exist only in divine vision, their silver leaves catching sunlight that feels both present and future. The very ground beneath his sandaled feet seems to pulse with the rhythm of God's faithfulness. In the cool shade of ancient oaks, Abraham rests and contemplates this inheritance. The land speaks to him in languages older than human words, telling stories of seasons that will come and harvests that will sustain his people. Each stone, each stream, each gentle hill becomes part of the sacred geography that God is writing into the story of his chosen lineage. The boundaries of this promised territory stretch beyond what eyes can see, encompassing not just physical space, but spiritual dimensions where heaven and earth will meet in perfect harmony. Here, in this land of milk and honey, the covenant will find its earthly expression, and Abraham's countless descendants will discover their true home. As evening approaches, Abraham stands on a small rise, watching shadows lengthen across the landscape of promise. The land awaits patiently, holding space for the fulfillment of every word that God has spoken, every blessing that has been sealed with divine love. The divine promise settles over Abraham like morning dew, each word carrying the weight of eternity. God speaks of descendants as numerous as the stars above, a multitude that will span generations beyond counting. Abraham's weathered hands rest gently on his staff as he contemplates this blessing that seems to stretch beyond the horizon of human understanding. In the quiet stillness of the desert night, the patriarch feels the profound responsibility of this covenant. His descendants will not merely exist. They will carry forward something sacred, something that connects heaven to earth. The promise flows through him like a gentle river, knowing that Sarah too will share in this miraculous blessing despite their advanced years. The stars seem to pulse with renewed brightness as Abraham considers how this covenant will unfold. Each point of light represents not just a future life, but a carrier of faith, a keeper of the divine promise. The blessing encompasses more than numbers. It speaks to purpose, to a chosen people who will walk in relationship with the Almighty through all the seasons of history. Abraham's heart swells with quiet gratitude as he understands that this blessing will extend far beyond his own lifetime. Through his lineage will come those who will bless all nations, who will carry the light of divine truth into a world that often walks in darkness. The promise feels both intimate and vast, personal yet universal in its scope. The gentle night breeze carries with it the assurance that God's word will not return empty. This blessing of descendants represents hope itself, the continuation of faith from one generation to the next, an unbroken chain of divine relationship that will endure through all the ages to come. The evening air carries a gentle stillness as Abraham sits outside his tent, gazing upward at the vast expanse of stars beginning to emerge in the darkening sky. The day's heat has given way to cool desert breezes that whisper softly through the camp, creating a peaceful backdrop for contemplation. His heart feels heavy with questions that have lingered for years. The promise of descendants seems distant when he looks around and sees no heir to carry on his name. Sarah remains childless, and time continues its steady passage. Yet something deep within him continues to hope, to believe in the words spoken by the Almighty. As he settles more comfortably on the woven mat beneath him, Abraham's eyes trace the familiar constellations overhead. The night sky holds mysteries and wonder, each star a tiny light in the darkness. He finds comfort in this ritual of evening, stargazing, this quiet time when the world settles into rest. The gentle sounds of the camp growing quiet surround him, the soft conversations of servants preparing for sleep, the occasional bleat of a goat, the crackling of dying embers from the cooking fires. These familiar sounds create a cocoon of peace around him as he waits in the growing darkness. His weathered hands rest peacefully in his lap as he breathes in the clean desert air. The scent of dying fires mingles with the earthy smell of the ground beneath him. Everything feels suspended in this moment between day and night, between questioning and faith, between the visible world and the realm of divine promise. The stars above seem to pulse gently with their ancient light, each one a reminder of the vastness of creation and the mystery of God's ways. Abraham feels small beneath this canopy of heaven, yet somehow significant, chosen, beloved. Abraham's hands tremble slightly as he gathers the animals God has requested. A 3-year-old heifer stands peacefully in the morning light, her breath visible in the cool air. Beside her, a 3-year-old female goat shifts quietly, and a 3-year-old ram waits with patient eyes. The turtle dove and young pigeon rest in a woven basket, their soft cooing adding gentle music to this sacred moment. With careful reverence, Abraham takes each animal and divides them in half, arranging the pieces opposite each other. This ancient ritual creates a pathway between the offerings, a sacred corridor where covenants are sealed. The turtle dove and pigeon remain whole, placed with tender care at the end of this holy arrangement. As the sun climbs higher, birds of prey begin circling overhead, drawn by the scent of the sacrifice. Abraham stands guard, his staff moving gently to drive them away. Each movement is deliberate, protective. He understands that this offering must remain pure and untouched until God's appointed time. His weathered hands grip his staff, his eyes scanning the sky with quiet determination. This is more than duty, it is devotion. Each bird he turns away represents his commitment to keeping this sacred space holy. Abraham's breathing is steady, his heart filled with anticipation. He knows something profound is approaching, something that will change everything. The divided animals rest in perfect stillness, waiting for the moment when heaven will touch earth and transform this simple hilltop into a place of eternal promise. The darkness settles around Abram like a gentle blanket, and in this sacred stillness, something extraordinary begins to unfold. The Lord's presence fills the space between sleep and waking, between earth and heaven, as his voice comes to Abram with the tenderness of a father speaking to his beloved child. I am your shield, your very great reward. These words drift through the night air like honey, sweet and nourishing to Abram's weary soul. In the gentle cadence of God's voice, there is no urgency, no demand for immediate response, only patient love, waiting in the darkness. Abram's heart stirs with a mixture of wonder and honest questioning. The years have been long, and the promise of descendants seems as distant as the stars that twinkle overhead. Yet here, in this sacred moment, he finds the courage to speak his deepest longing. "Sovereign Lord," he responds softly, "what can you give me since I remain childless? You have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir." The words hang in the air like incense, honest and vulnerable. There is no anger in Abram's voice, only the gentle ache of a heart that has waited so long for fulfillment. The darkness seems to embrace his words, holding them tenderly. God's response comes with infinite patience, like morning light gradually touching the horizon. This man will not be your heir, but a son who is your own flesh and blood will be your heir. The promise settles into the night like dew upon grass, refreshing and life-giving. In this sacred exchange, we glimpse the beautiful intimacy between the Creator and his chosen servant, a conversation held in perfect trust within the gentle embrace of darkness. The evening sky spreads wide above Abraham as he stands in the doorway of his tent, watching the last traces of sunlight fade into deep, purple twilight. The air carries the gentle sounds of his household settling for the night, sheep bleating softly in their pen, the quiet murmur of servants banking the cooking fires, the rustle of tent flaps moving in the warm breeze. Abraham's eyes turn upward, drawn by an invisible invitation. One by one, the stars begin to appear, tiny points of light piercing the growing darkness. First, just a few, scattered across the vast canvas above, then more and more, until the entire sky becomes a tapestry of countless lights. In this moment of profound stillness, Abraham feels the presence of the Almighty drawing near. The stars seem to pulse with gentle radiance, each one a testimony to God's faithfulness. The Lord's voice comes like a whisper on the wind, tender and reassuring. Look now toward heaven and count the stars if you are able to number them. So shall your descendants be. Abraham stands in wonder, his head tilted back, trying to comprehend the magnitude of this promise. The stars stretch endlessly in every direction, more numerous than grains of sand, more abundant than he could ever hope to count. Each tiny light represents a future life, a descendant who will carry forward the covenant God has made with him. The desert silence wraps around this sacred moment like a soft blanket. Abraham's heart fills with a deep, abiding trust as he gazes upward at these celestial witnesses. In the gentle darkness, surrounded by the quiet breath of sleeping creation, Abraham finds his soul at perfect peace. The stars above shine down like loving eyes, keeping watch over God's chosen servant as he rests in the assurance of divine faithfulness. The promise given to Abraham now takes on new dimensions of meaning and commitment. God speaks again to his chosen servant, and this time the covenant will be marked not just with words and visions, but with a physical sign that will endure through all generations. Abraham is now 99 years old, his beard white as mountain snow, his hands weathered by decades of desert life. Yet his faith remains steady as the morning star, unwavering in its brightness. The flocks around him have multiplied beyond counting, and his household has grown into a small nation of servants and their families. On this particular day, as the sun reaches its gentle peak and casts short shadows beneath the terebinth trees, the Lord appears to Abraham with words that will reshape his understanding of the divine promise. The presence of the Almighty settles over the camp like a soft blanket of peace, and Abraham falls reverently upon his face. God speaks of making Abraham exceedingly fruitful, of kings that shall come from his lineage, of an everlasting covenant between the Lord and Abraham's descendants. The land of Canaan, where Abraham has wandered as a sojourner, will become an eternal possession for his offspring. But this renewed covenant comes with a requirement, a sign that every male in Abraham's household must bear. It is the covenant of circumcision, a mark in the flesh that will distinguish God's people from all other nations. This sign will be carried in their bodies as a perpetual reminder of their special relationship with the Most High. The gentle breeze carries the scent of wild mint and rosemary across the encampment as Abraham listens to these sacred words. His heart fills with both wonder and acceptance, knowing that obedience to God's commands has always brought blessing. As the divine presence speaks, Abraham learns that even his name will change. No longer will he be called Abram, but Abraham, meaning father of many nations. And his beloved wife Sarai will become Sarah, for she too will be blessed with a special role in God's eternal plan. The warm evening air settles around Abraham's tent as he sits quietly beneath the stars. Sarah moves gracefully nearby, her steps soft against the earthen floor as she prepares their simple meal. The flickering oil lamp casts gentle shadows on the tent walls, creating a peaceful atmosphere of daily life in this ancient dwelling. Abraham's weathered hands rest calmly in his lap as he contemplates the promise God has given him. The Lord has spoken of descendants as numerous as the stars above, yet here in the quiet of evening he and Sarah remain childless. Still, there is no bitterness in his heart, only patient trust in the one who has called him. Sarah glances toward her husband with tender eyes, seeing the gentle faith that has carried them through so many years of journeying together. She knows the weight of God's promise rests heavily on his mind, yet she also sees the unwavering confidence that marks his spirit. Their love has deepened through these years of waiting, becoming something precious and enduring. Servants tend to their duties with quiet efficiency, while the gentle lowing of cattle and the soft bleating of sheep create a soothing symphony of pastoral life. Everything speaks of blessing and abundance, yet the promise of a son remains unfulfilled. Abraham rises slowly and steps outside his tent, lifting his eyes once more to the countless stars scattered across the heavens. Each point of light seems to whisper of God's faithfulness, reminding him that the Lord's timing is perfect and his promises are sure. The cool night breeze carries with it a sense of anticipation, as if something wonderful draws near. In the stillness of this holy moment, Abraham's heart fills with quiet confidence. He knows that the God who brought him from Ur, who has protected and provided for him throughout this long journey, will surely bring to pass every word he has spoken. The desert wind carries whispers of change as we find ourselves drawn deeper into Sarai's quiet chambers. The lamp flames flickered gently against the tent walls, casting soft shadows that seem to dance with the weight of unspoken hopes. Sarai sits quietly, her hands folded in her lap, contemplating a decision that will alter the course of their family forever. In the gentle silence, she considers her Egyptian maidservant Hagar, a young woman who has served faithfully in their household. The customs of their time whisper of an ancient practice, a way for a barren wife to build a family through her servant. With tender resolve, Sarai approaches Abram as the evening stars begin their nightly vigil. Her voice carries both resignation and hope as she speaks softly of her plan. Perhaps, she suggests, the promise might be fulfilled through Hagar. Perhaps this is the path God intends for them to walk. Abram listens with the patience of a man who has learned to trust in divine timing, even when that timing stretches beyond human understanding. He accepts Sarai's counsel, and in the quiet sanctity of their tent, Hagar becomes his wife according to the customs of their people. The desert moon witnesses the unfolding of this ancient story, where human plans intertwine with divine purposes in ways that will echo through generations. In the gentle rhythm of desert life, we sense that even in our attempts to help God's promises along, His greater plan continues to unfold with perfect timing and infinite wisdom. The years stretch before Abraham like the endless expanse of desert sand, each grain a day of waiting, each June a season of patient hope. Sarah moves through their tent with quiet grace, her steps soft against the woven rugs, her eyes holding depths that speak of dreams, deferred yet not abandoned. In the cool of evening, Abraham often sits at the entrance of their dwelling, watching the sky deepen from amber to deep purple. The stars emerge one by one, each a gentle reminder of God's promise. He counts them sometimes, not to number them, but to remember the voice that spoke of descendants as numerous as these celestial lights. The flocks graze peacefully in the distance, their bells creating a soft melody that drifts on the evening breeze. Shepherds call to one another across the hills, their voices carrying reassurance and comfort. This is the rhythm of their days, tending, watching, waiting with the patience that comes from deep faith. Sarah prepares their evening meal, the familiar sounds of her work, a gentle comfort, the grinding of grain, the soft bubbling of lentils over the fire, the quiet rustle of her garments as she moves about their simple home. These are the sacred moments that fill the waiting years, each one precious in its quiet beauty. Time moves differently here in the ancient world, measured not by urgency, but by seasons and stars. Abraham has learned to trust in God's timing, to find peace in the space between promise and fulfillment. His hair grows more silver with each passing year, yet his heart remains young with hope. The covenant sealed in blood and fire remains vivid in his memory, a source of strength that sustains him through the gentle passage of days. He knows that God's promises unfold like the gradual brightening of dawn, slow and steady and completely trustworthy. The afternoon sun casts long shadows across the plains of Mamre as Abraham sits beneath the spreading branches of an ancient oak tree. The heat of the day has begun to soften, and a gentle breeze stirs through the leaves above him. This is his place of quiet reflection, where he often comes to rest during the warmest hours. As Abraham looks up from his peaceful contemplation, he sees three figures approaching in the distance. They walk with unhurried steps across the grassland, their forms becoming clearer as they draw near. Something about their presence fills Abraham with a deep sense of recognition, though he cannot yet understand why. Without hesitation, Abraham rises and hurries toward them. There is an urgency in his movements, but it springs from joy rather than alarm. He bows low before the visitors, his heart somehow knowing that this moment carries great significance. The visitors accept Abraham's invitation to rest beneath the oak tree. Sarah, moving with quiet efficiency, prepares fresh bread from the finest flour. The aroma fills the air as Abraham selects a tender calf from his herd. The meal is prepared with care and reverence, each dish offered with genuine hospitality. As they share this simple feast beneath the dappled shade, one of the visitors speaks words that make Sarah's heart leap within her tent nearby. The promise comes gently, like morning light breaking over the horizon. A son will be born to Abraham and Sarah, despite the many years that have passed since their youth. The conversation flows like a peaceful stream, carrying with it the weight of divine purpose. Abraham walks partway with his visitors as they prepare to continue their journey, their feet carrying them toward the cities in the distance. The encounter leaves Abraham with a sense of wonder that settles over him like a comfortable blanket. The oak tree at Mamre stands as a silent witness to this sacred meeting, its branches swaying gently in the evening breeze. The promise given beneath its shade will echo through generations, a covenant renewed in the quiet moments of an ordinary day, transformed by extraordinary grace. Sarah stands in the entrance of their tent, her weathered hands steady as she kneads the dough for their evening meal. The soft rhythm of her work creates a gentle pattern in the desert quiet. At 90 years old, her movements carry the wisdom of countless seasons, each gesture practiced and sure. The three visitors sit beneath the terebinth tree with Abraham, their conversation flowing like water over smooth stones. Sarah listens while she works, her attention drawn to their words about seasons and timing, about promises that seem to dance just beyond understanding. Then she hears it. Clear as the desert wind, one of the visitors speaks of her bearing a son, of new life stirring within her aged body. The words float through the tent, opening like morning mist, settling into the quiet spaces of her heart. Laughter bubbles up from somewhere deep within her, soft and wondering. Not the harsh laughter of mockery, but the gentle sound of surprise meeting impossibility. Her shoulders shake quietly as she covers her mouth, her eyes bright with tears that could be joy or disbelief or both. The visitor's voice carries back to her, patient and knowing. He asks Abraham why Sarah laughed, why she questioned whether such things could be. Sarah feels her breath catch, realizing that somehow her quiet moment has been heard, understood, known completely. Fear touches her heart like a cool breeze. She steps closer to the tent opening, her voice barely above a whisper. "I did not laugh," she says, though the words feel strange on her tongue. But the visitor's response comes gentle as falling leaves. "No, you did laugh." There is no judgment in his tone, only the deep kindness of one who understands the human heart, who knows that laughter can be the soul's way of reaching toward wonder. Sarah's hands rest still now, flour dusting her fingers like desert sand. In the growing twilight she ponders these mysterious words, these impossible promises, letting them settle into her heart like seeds waiting for their season to bloom. Abraham sits quietly in the doorway of his tent, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the plains of Mamre. The heat of the day begins to soften as a gentle breeze stirs the fabric of his dwelling. Sarah moves softly within, preparing their simple meal as she has done countless times before. The Lord appears to Abraham in a vision of perfect peace, his presence filling the patriarch's heart with warmth and wonder. God's voice comes like the whisper of wind through olive branches, carrying words that will change everything. "Sarah, your wife shall have a son," the Lord declares with gentle certainty. After so many years of waiting, after seasons of hope and seasons of doubt, this moment arrives wrapped in divine tenderness. Abraham's weathered hands rest quietly in his lap as he receives this blessing. His heart stirs with joy so deep it feels like the movement of still waters touched by heaven's light. Sarah, now 90 years old, her hair silver as starlight, will bear the child of promise. The Lord continues his gentle proclamation, each word settling into Abraham's soul like seeds in fertile earth. "You shall call his name Isaac," God says, the name itself carrying the sound of laughter and joy. Isaac, which means laughter, for this child will bring gladness not only to Abraham and Sarah, but to generations yet unborn. She brings her hand to her mouth, stifling the laugh that rises unbidden. Could it be possible? After all these years of yearning, could the Lord truly bless her with a child? The promise hangs in the air like incense, sweet and sacred. Abraham bows his head in reverent gratitude, his spirit overflowing with thanksgiving. The God who makes covenants with his people has spoken, and his word is as certain as the rising sun. The fulfillment of God's promise brings a profound joy that settles over Abraham's household like morning dew on tender grass. Isaac grows strong and healthy, his laughter echoing through the tents as he takes his first steps on unsteady legs. Sarah watches with wonder, her eyes bright with tears of gratitude as she holds the child she never dared hope would come. The weight of waiting has lifted from Abraham's shoulders. For 25 years he carried the promise in his heart, through seasons of doubt and moments of wavering faith. Now, as he cradles his son in the evening light, he understands that God's timing was perfect, even when it seemed impossible. The covenant mark on Isaac's small body serves as a gentle reminder of their place in God's eternal plan. This child, born to parents well past their prime, represents the beginning of something vast and wonderful. Through him, nations will rise, and God's blessing will flow to all the earth. In the quiet moments before sleep, Abraham often reflects on the journey that brought them here. The years of wandering, the tests of faith, the moments of fear and uncertainty, all have led to this precious gift. Isaac sleeps peacefully in his mother's arms, unaware that he carries within him the hopes of generations yet to come. The stars above seem to twinkle with special brightness, as if heaven itself celebrates this fulfillment. Abraham remembers God's promise to make his descendants as numerous as those countless lights. Now, holding his son close, that promise feels beautifully tangible. Sarah hums softly as she rocks Isaac to sleep, her voice carrying notes of joy that would have seemed impossible just a few years ago. The God who makes the impossible possible has proven faithful once again. Their household rests in the sweet satisfaction of promises kept and love fulfilled. The years pass like gentle seasons in the land of Canaan, each one bringing its own quiet rhythms to Abraham's household. Isaac grows from a child of promise into a young man, his laughter still echoing through the encampment as it did in his earliest days. The boy moves with the grace of one who has known only love and security, unaware that his very existence represents the fulfillment of God's most sacred promise. In the stillness of early morning, when the first light touches the eastern hills, Abraham often watches his son tend to the flocks. Isaac's hands are gentle with the sheep, his voice calm as he guides them to water. There is something of Sarah's determination in the way he sets his shoulders, something of Abraham's patient faith in how he waits for the slower lambs to catch up with the flock. The covenant mark that Abraham bears has become as natural to him as breathing, a constant reminder of the relationship that binds him to the Almighty. It speaks of promises fulfilled and promises yet to come, of a nation that will number like the stars, of a blessing that will flow to all peoples of the earth. Sometimes, in the deep quiet of night, Abraham reflects on the journey that brought him here. From Ur of the Chaldees to this promised land, from the name Abram to Abraham, from the impossible hope of a son to the daily joy of watching Isaac grow. Each step has required faith, each promise has demanded patience, each blessing has deepened his understanding of the one who called him out of his father's house. The sheep settle into their peaceful rest as evening approaches, and Abraham feels the familiar comfort of God's presence surrounding him like a gentle embrace. Tomorrow will bring its own quiet moments, its own small mercies, its own opportunities to walk in faithfulness along the path that leads toward promises yet to be fulfilled. The silence that follows Abraham's obedience stretches like a held breath across the mountain. Isaac remains still upon the altar, his young eyes reflecting a trust that runs deeper than fear. The wood beneath him carries the scent of cedar and oak, gathered with such care from the hillside. Abraham's hand trembles slightly as he holds the knife, his weathered fingers wrapped around the handle that catches the morning light. Then, breaking through the quiet like the gentlest dawn, comes the voice of the angel of the Lord, calling from heaven. "Abraham, Abraham!" The words float down like dew settling on grass. The old patriarch's head lifts toward the sky, his eyes searching the blue expanse above. "Here I am," he responds, his voice barely a whisper, yet carrying the weight of complete surrender. "Do not lay your hand on the boy," the angel speaks, each word falling like soft rain on parched earth. "Do not do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God, seeing you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me." The relief that washes over Abraham's face is like sunrise breaking through storm clouds, gentle and transforming. Isaac sits up slowly on the altar, his young face filled with wonder rather than fear. The bindings fall away like autumn leaves, and father and son embrace in the mountain stillness. Their tears mingle with grateful laughter, soft and precious in the morning air. Then Abraham lifts his eyes and looks around, and there behind him, caught in a thicket by its horns, stands a ram. The animal waits peacefully, as if placed there by divine appointment. Its wool is white as fresh snow, its eyes calm and accepting. Abraham approaches with reverent steps, his heart overflowing with gratitude for this provision. Gently he takes the ram from the thicket, his hands steady now with purpose. This creature will take Isaac's place, becoming the sacrifice that God himself has provided. The substitution is complete, perfect, a gift of grace woven into the very fabric of this sacred morning. The stars above Abraham's tent shine with the same gentle light that witnessed God's covenant years before. In the quiet of evening, the patriarch reflects on the journey that has brought him to this moment of deep faith and unwavering trust. The covenant rings has grown beyond what Abraham could have imagined when he first heard God's voice calling him from Ur. Each promise spoken under the starlit sky has unfolded like a flower opening to the dawn, revealing layers of meaning and blessing that extend far beyond his own lifetime. Sarah moves quietly beside him, her presence a testament to God's faithfulness. The laughter that once seemed impossible now echoes softly in their daily life, a reminder that nothing is too difficult for the Lord. Their tent has become a place where heaven touches earth, where ordinary moments carry the weight of divine purpose. The circumcision Abraham performed as a sign of the covenant has become more than a ritual. It represents a heart transformed, a life dedicated completely to God's will. This outward sign speaks of an inward reality, a cutting away of the old self to make room for God's new creation. As Abraham gazes at the flickering oil lamps in his tent, he sees in their steady glow a picture of faith itself. Like these flames that burn through the darkness, faith illuminates the path ahead, casting gentle light on uncertainties and making clear the way forward. The covenant with God has taught Abraham that faith is not a destination but a journey, not a single moment but a lifetime of walking in trust. Each step taken in obedience has revealed new depths of God's character, new reasons to praise his holy name. The evening breeze carries with it the scent of the promised land, rich earth that will one day belong to his descendants. In this gentle wind, Abraham hears the whisper of generations yet to come, countless souls who will call him Father and walk in the covenant path he has helped establish. The morning light filters softly through the tent openings as Isaac rises, his movements deliberate and peaceful. The weight of yesterday's covenant ceremony still lingers in the air, but now there's something more. A sense of completion, of promises fulfilled and blessings ready to flow forward like a gentle stream. Sarah moves quietly beside him, her face carrying the same serene understanding. They both know that what happened yesterday wasn't just about Abraham receiving God's promises. It was about those promises becoming a living inheritance, ready to be passed down through generations like precious water flowing from one vessel to another. Isaac walks to where his father sits in quiet contemplation, the morning breeze stirring the edges of his robe. There's no need for many words between them. The covenant they witnessed has created a bridge between past and future, and Isaac can feel himself stepping across it with reverence. Abraham's weathered hands rest peacefully in his lap as he speaks softly about the promises, how they extend beyond his own lifetime like roots growing deep into rich soil. The land stretching before them, the descendants who will one day number like the stars, the blessing that will flow to all nations. These gifts are not meant to be held tightly, but shared freely. The servants move about their morning tasks with unusual quietness, as if they too understand that they're part of something larger than themselves. The very air seems to carry whispers of blessing, of God's faithfulness, extending forward through time like gentle waves lapping at an endless shore. Isaac closes his eyes and feels the weight of inheritance settling on his shoulders. Not heavy like a burden, but warm like his father's blessing hand. He knows that one day he too will pass these promises forward, each generation becoming a link in an unbroken chain of God's love. The morning continues its peaceful rhythm, each moment a quiet preparation for the countless blessings yet to come. The morning sun casts long shadows across the plains of Mamre as Abraham's household stirs to life. The black goat hair tents, expertly woven by skilled hands, flutter gently in the desert breeze. Each tent is positioned with careful intention, creating a small village that speaks of prosperity and divine blessing. Sarah emerges from the largest tent, her movements graceful and purposeful. She oversees the grinding of grain, the rhythm of stone against stone creating a peaceful cadence that blends with the soft bleating of sheep in the distance. The aroma of freshly baked bread begins to drift through the encampment, carried on the warm morning air. Servants move quietly between the tents, their sandaled feet padding softly on the packed earth. They carry water jars balanced perfectly on their shoulders, their voices creating a gentle murmur of conversation as they tend to the daily needs of this nomadic household. The well that Abraham's men dug provides clear, cool water that sparkles in the earthenware vessels. Abraham himself stands at the entrance of his tent, his weathered hands running through his graying beard as he surveys his domain. His eyes hold the contentment of a man who has walked with God, yet also the patient longing of one still waiting for the fullness of divine promise. The covenant weighs on his heart like a precious stone, both burden and blessing intertwined. The olive trees nearby provide welcome shade, their silver-green leaves shimmering in the gentle breeze. Beneath their branches, children play simple games with smooth stones, their laughter adding a note of joy to the peaceful morning. Even in the wilderness, life finds its rhythm, sustained by faith and the ancient promise of descendants as numerous as the stars. The morning sun filters through the acacia trees as Abraham walks slowly toward the well his servants have just completed. The sound of water trickling into the stone basin creates a gentle rhythm that seems to echo the promises God has spoken over his household. Each drop that falls carries with it the weight of divine faithfulness, a reminder that even in this arid land the Lord provides. Sarah approaches from the tent, her steps measured and peaceful. She carries a clay vessel, worn smooth by countless journeys to draw water. The well represents more than mere sustenance. It stands as a testament to God's provision, a physical reminder of his covenant promise that Abraham's descendants will inherit this land. Abraham kneels beside the well, cupping the precious liquid in his weathered hands. As he drinks, he remembers the Lord's words about making his name great, about blessing him so that he might be a blessing to others. This well, dug by faithful hands under the scorching sun, will serve not only his own household, but also the travelers and strangers who pass this way. Servants gather around the well, their voices soft with gratitude. They speak of how the Lord guided them to this spot, how the earth yielded its hidden waters after days of patient digging. Their words drift on the warm breeze, mixing with the gentle splash of water being drawn up in leather buckets. The well becomes a place of quiet reflection, where Abraham often comes in the evening hours to ponder God's promises. Here, surrounded by the soft sounds of flowing water and the distant bleating of sheep, he finds his heart filled with trust in the covenant that binds him to the Almighty. Abraham's hands move carefully over the weathered stones, each one chosen with deliberate care. The morning air carries the scent of wild herbs and distant rain as he builds this altar, not for sacrifice this time, but for remembrance. His movements are unhurried, reverent, as if each stone holds the weight of divine promise. The altar takes shape slowly, stone upon stone, each placement a prayer of gratitude. Sarah watches from their tent, her eyes soft with understanding. She knows these moments of worship have become anchors for her husband's soul, marking the sacred encounters that have shaped their wandering journey. The sun climbs higher, warming the stones beneath Abraham's weathered palms. He thinks of the covenant, of the stars that spoke of countless descendants, of the land that stretches endlessly before them. Each memory settles into place like the stones themselves, solid and enduring. When the altar is complete, Abraham steps back, his breath coming easily in the mountain air. This simple structure will remain long after they have moved on, a testament to faith and divine faithfulness. The stones will weather storms and seasons, but their purpose remains unchanged. He kneels beside the altar, his voice barely above a whisper, as he speaks words of thanksgiving. The breeze carries his prayers upward, past the circling hawks, toward the endless sky where promises dwell. In this quiet moment, surrounded by the vast wilderness, Abraham feels the profound peace that comes from knowing he is held within something greater than himself. The altar stands complete, a marker of sacred encounter, a reminder that in the midst of wandering, there are always places where earth touches heaven, where human hearts meet divine love. The morning sun filters through the tent flaps as Abraham rises, his heart heavy yet resolute. The promise of Isaac's return weighs gently on their minds, a tender anchor in this storm of obedience. Outside, the servants tend to the animals with unusual quietness, as if sensing the gravity of their master's mission. The donkey stands ready, patient and steady, while the bundles of wood rest nearby. Isaac emerges from his tent, his young face bright with the anticipation of worship, unaware of the deeper currents flowing through this day. Abraham's weathered hands tremble slightly as he adjusts the rope that will secure their supplies. Each movement is deliberate, purposeful, carried out in the sacred space between divine command and human surrender. The familiar weight of responsibility settles on his shoulders, but underneath flows a current of peace that surpasses understanding. The two young men who will accompany them partway speak in hushed tones, preparing for the journey ahead. Their presence brings comfort without intrusion, a reminder that even in the most solitary acts of faith, community surrounds us with gentle support. As they prepare to depart, Abraham's hand finds Isaac's shoulder, a gesture both protective and surrendering. The boy looks up with trusting eyes, and in that moment, the patriarch glimpses something of the father's own heart, the costly nature of perfect love, the weight of promises that stretch beyond human comprehension. The path ahead winds through familiar territory, yet today it feels transformed, sanctified by the magnitude of what obedience requires. Each step will be taken in faith, each breath drawn in surrender to the one who sees beyond the immediate into the eternal tapestry of his purposes. The evening air carries something different now, something that makes Abraham pause in his walking. It's not quite a sound, not exactly a feeling, but something that settles over the landscape like the gentlest of whispers. The olive trees seem to lean in closer, their silver leaves catching the last traces of sunlight, and even the sheep in the distance have grown still, as if they too sense the approach of something sacred. Abraham finds himself drawn to a quiet grove, where the ground is soft beneath his feet, carpeted with fallen leaves that rustle like prayers. The sky above deepens to that perfect shade between day and night, when the world holds its breath and waits. Here, in this peaceful hollow, surrounded by the familiar sense of earth and growing things, he feels the presence of the Most High drawing near. The voice, when it comes, is softer than wind through grass, gentler than water over stones. It doesn't boom from the heavens or shake the ground beneath his feet. Instead, it seems to rise from the very heart of creation itself, speaking directly to Abraham's soul in words that feel both ancient and eternally new. "Do not be afraid, Abraham," the voice whispers, and each word carries the weight of infinite love. "I am your shield, your very great reward." The words settle over him like a warm blanket, wrapping around his heart and easing away the worries that have been his constant companions. In this moment, with God's voice surrounding him like the gentlest embrace, Abraham understands that he is not alone in this vast world. He is seen, known, and deeply loved by the one who spoke the stars into being. The peace that fills this sacred space is complete, a quietness that speaks of divine presence and eternal promises yet to unfold. Even the evening breeze seems to carry whispers of hope, soft and reassuring in the growing twilight. The night air grows softer as Abraham's eyes grow heavy with the weight of divine promises. In the gentle darkness that follows God's covenant, dreams begin to weave themselves through his peaceful sleep like threads of silver moonlight. These are not ordinary dreams, but visions that stretch across the vast tapestry of time itself. Abraham sees his descendants like stars scattered across the heavens, each one carrying within them the sacred promise made on this holy night. The images flow like a gentle river, carrying him forward through generations yet to come. In his dream, Abraham witnesses great migrations of his people, their footsteps soft as whispers across desert sands. He sees them in a distant land, their numbers growing like grain in fertile fields, each generation building upon the foundation of faith established in this moment. The vision unfolds with the gentle rhythm of seasons passing, winter giving way to spring, darkness yielding to dawn. The Lord speaks to him in this dream state, his voice like the gentle rustling of leaves in an evening breeze. 400 years his people will sojourn in a land not their own, serving others with patience and endurance. But they will emerge with great abundance, carrying treasures both material and spiritual, their hearts filled with the knowledge of their true inheritance. Abraham sees himself in this vision, surrounded by the gentle glow of peace. He will live to a good old age, his days full and complete, departing this world like a candle flame that has burned brightly and steadily through the night. His rest will be peaceful, his legacy secure in the hands of the Almighty. The dream flows onward, showing glimpses of a promised land where milk and honey flow like gentle streams. Cities will rise there, their foundations built upon the covenant made in this sacred hour. Gardens will bloom, families will gather, and children will play beneath olive trees whose branches reach toward heaven. Through it all, the thread of promise weaves unbroken, connecting this quiet moment to countless tomorrows. Each vision carries the weight of destiny, yet feels light as a feather floating on evening air. Abraham's heart fills with quiet joy as he witnesses the fulfillment of words spoken under starlight. The images begin to fade like morning mist, leaving only the gentle warmth of divine presence and the certainty that every promise will find its perfect fulfillment. The desert sands shift quietly beneath the endless sky, each grain a witness to countless stories told and retold through the generations. Here in this timeless landscape, where Abraham once walked with his flocks, the very earth seems to hold memories of ancient promises. The wind moves gently across the dunes, carrying with it the whispers of ages past. In this sacred silence, we can almost hear the footsteps of the patriarch as he journeyed from place to place, his heart heavy with questions about the covenant God had made with him. The sand beneath our feet is warm from the day's sun, now fading into the soft purple hues of evening. Each step we take connects us to this ancient path where faith was tested and refined like precious metal in the furnace of uncertainty. In the distance, the silhouette of acacia trees stands sentinel against the darkening sky. Their twisted branches reach upward as if in prayer, their leaves rustling with the gentle evening breeze. These trees have witnessed generations come and go, their roots drinking deeply from hidden springs that sustain life in this arid land. Soon the sky will be filled with countless points of brilliance, each one a reminder of God's promise to Abraham about his descendants. As we settle into this peaceful desert evening, the sands of time seem to slow their endless dance, inviting us to rest in the quietude of this sacred space where heaven and earth once touched in divine conversation. The promise hangs in the air like morning mist, gentle and encompassing. Abraham stands quietly beneath the canopy of stars, each one a whisper of what is to come. The desert wind carries the scent of distant hills, and in this sacred moment, time seems to pause in reverence. God's voice moves through the silence like water over smooth stones. Your descendants will be as numerous as the stars above, each one a light in the darkness of time. The promise extends beyond the horizon, reaching into generations yet unborn, touching lives not yet imagined. Abraham's weathered hands rest at his sides as he gazes upward. The stars seem to pulse with gentle light, each one a testament to faithfulness. In the soft darkness, he can almost see the faces of those who will come after him, children of promise walking in paths of peace. The covenant settles around them like a flowing robe, warm and protective. It speaks of lands that will bloom with abundance, of families that will gather in joy, of blessings that will flow like rivers to distant shores. The promise is not just for Abraham, but for all who will walk in trust through the ages. A gentle breeze stirs the desert grass, and in its whisper, there is comfort. The stars continue their quiet dance overhead, each one a reminder that some promises are woven into the very fabric of creation. Abraham breathes deeply, feeling the weight and wonder of what has been spoken. In this peaceful moment, surrounded by the vastness of night and the intimacy of divine presence, the promise takes root. It will grow quietly through the years, branching and blooming in ways that only eternity can fully reveal. For now, it is enough to stand beneath the stars and know that tomorrow holds hope. Abraham's heart carries the weight of waiting, yet also the lightness of promise. In the quiet evening air, he reflects on the covenant God has made with him. The stars above seem to whisper of descendants as numerous as their celestial dance, and Abraham's spirit finds peace in this divine assurance. Sarah moves through their tent with gentle purpose, her hands busy with the evening preparations. Though her womb remains closed, she has witnessed the miraculous provision of Hagar's son, and her heart holds both the complexity of human emotion and the steady flame of faith in God's timing. The camp settles into its nightly rhythm. Servants tend to the animals with practiced care, their voices soft in the gathering dusk. The smell of evening fires mingles with the cool desert air, creating an atmosphere of home in this wilderness place. Abraham walks among his household, a father figure to many. His presence brings comfort to those who have chosen to follow his journey of faith. Young servants listen as he speaks of the God who calls him friend, their eyes bright with wonder at the stories of divine encounters. The covenant seal in Abraham's flesh serves as a daily reminder of his belonging to the Almighty. It speaks not of burden, but of chosen relationship, of being set apart for purposes beyond human understanding. In this marking, Abraham finds identity and hope. The evening prayers rise like incense, carried on the desert breeze. Abraham's voice joins the gentle murmur of his household as they acknowledge the God who has made them a people. The words flow like water over stones, smooth and constant. As night deepens, Abraham lies beneath the star-filled sky, his heart full of gratitude. The promise of a son through Sarah remains ahead, yet he rests in the certainty of God's faithfulness. His breathing slows, matching the peaceful rhythm of his trusting heart. Abraham's faith becomes a cornerstone of divine relationship, a quiet trust that echoes through generations. In the stillness of his tent, surrounded by the gentle sounds of evening, the patriarch reflects on God's promises. His heart, weathered by years of waiting, holds fast to words spoken under starlit skies. Abraham's righteousness comes through believing, through the simple act of trusting God's word when circumstances suggest otherwise. His faith doesn't waver in the face of impossibility, but finds strength in the character of the one who promises. Sarah, too, learns the depths of faith as she prepares for motherhood in her advanced years. Her laughter of disbelief transforms into wonder as she feels new life stirring within her. The tent becomes a place of quiet anticipation, where each day brings them closer to the fulfillment of God's promise. Servants observe their master's devotion, his regular prayers, his careful obedience to God's commands. The altar stones, worn smooth by weather and time, stand as silent testimony to a life lived in communion with the Almighty. Faith becomes a legacy, something to be passed down through generations. Abraham speaks to his household of God's faithfulness, sharing stories of divine encounters and miraculous provision. These tales become treasured memories, woven into the fabric of their daily existence. In the gentle evening hours, as cooking fires dim and the camp settles into peaceful rest, Abraham's faith continues to grow. Each sunset brings fresh confidence in God's promises, each dawn renewed hope for their fulfillment. This quiet trust becomes the foundation upon which a great nation will be built. The patriarch's faith transforms ordinary moments into sacred encounters, turning simple obedience into profound worship. In this peace, trust deepens and hope takes root. The covenant light grows warmer now, settling into Abraham's heart like honey into bread. This sacred promise between God and his chosen servant carries within it the gentle weight of generations yet to come, each one held tenderly in the divine embrace. Abraham feels the profound peace that follows such an encounter with the Almighty. The smoking furnace and blazing torch have passed between the sacrifices, sealing forever this holy agreement. No longer does uncertainty cloud his thoughts about God's faithfulness. The Lord has bound himself with unbreakable cords of love and promise. In the quiet aftermath, Abraham understands that this moment will echo through countless ages. Children will hear of this night when heaven touched earth, when the God of all creation chose to covenant with dust and breath. The very stars seem to whisper of the multitude that will one day call Abraham father, each soul a precious gem in the crown of God's eternal plan. The covenant brings not just promise, but responsibility. Abraham will walk before the Lord, seeking to be blameless, teaching his household the ways of righteousness and justice. This sacred trust will pass from father to son, a golden thread woven through the fabric of history. As the night deepens around this holy ground, Abraham's heart overflows with gratitude. The God who spoke worlds into existence has chosen to make his dwelling among men, to bind himself in covenant love that will never fail. Even when circumstances seem impossible, when hope appears dim, this promise will stand firm as the mountains, sure as the sunrise. In this gentle radiance, past, present, and future converge in perfect harmony, held safely in the hands of the covenant. Abraham sits quietly in the entrance of his tent as the afternoon sun begins its gentle descent toward the horizon. The familiar weight of uncertainty has settled upon his shoulders once again, like a well-worn cloak that he cannot seem to set aside. His weathered hands rest against his knees as he gazes across the landscape that God has promised to give to his descendants. The promise feels both near and impossibly distant. Years have passed since that first calling, when the voice of the Almighty beckoned him to leave everything familiar behind. He had obeyed without question then, his heart filled with the bright certainty of youth and newfound faith. But now, as the seasons continue their endless cycle, doubt whispers softly in the spaces between his prayers. Sarah moves quietly within the tent behind him, and he can hear the gentle rustle of fabric as she tends to their simple belongings. Neither of them speaks of the child that has not come, though the unspoken longing hangs in the air like morning mist. How can the promise of countless descendants be fulfilled when they remain childless? The question circles through his mind like a bird seeking a place to rest. The servants go about their evening duties with practiced efficiency, their voices carrying softly across the camp. These faithful souls look to him for guidance and provision, trusting in his leadership as they have for so many years. Yet tonight, Abraham feels the full weight of his human frailty pressing down upon him. As twilight approaches, the familiar sounds of the camp settling into rest create a gentle rhythm around him. Somewhere in the distance, sheep call softly to one another, and the evening breeze carries the scent of cooking fires and dry grass. These simple, earthly comforts remind him that life continues its steady pace, even when the heart is heavy with questions that seem to have no answers. The first stars begin to appear in the darkening sky, each one a tiny light piercing the gathering shadows. Abraham lifts his eyes upward, remembering other nights when he has sought the face of God among these same constellations. Tonight, he will again pour out his heart to the one who called him, bringing his doubts and fears into the sacred space of honest prayer. 3 tender days pass in the household of Abraham, days filled with the gentle rhythm of healing and quiet contemplation. Sarah moves through their tent with careful steps, her heart gradually finding peace with the profound change that has taken place within her very being. The soreness in her body serves as a constant, gentle reminder of God's faithfulness. Each small discomfort, a whisper of the miraculous transformation occurring within her. Abraham tends to his daily responsibilities with a renewed sense of purpose, his movements deliberate and thoughtful. The sheep graze peacefully in the meadows, their soft bleating carried on the warm breeze that stirs the tent flaps. The servants go about their tasks with quiet efficiency, sensing the sacred atmosphere that has settled over their camp like a comfortable blanket. In the evenings, Abraham and Sarah sit together beneath the vast canopy of stars, their conversation soft and filled with wonder. They speak of names, of hopes, of the child who will soon join their family. Sarah's hand rests gently on her still flat belly, and Abraham's weathered fingers intertwine with hers, both of them marveling at the mystery of life beginning to unfold. The desert wind carries the scent of distant rain, promising refreshment for the land. Nightbirds call softly to one another across the peaceful landscape, their voices creating a gentle symphony that lulls the camp into restful sleep. Abraham's flocks settle into their quiet rhythms, and the cooking fires burn low, casting warm, flickering light across the faces of those who have witnessed God's miraculous intervention. As darkness deepens, Abraham and Sarah prepare for sleep, their hearts full of gratitude and anticipation. Tomorrow will bring new mercies, new evidences of God's faithfulness, but tonight they rest in the comfort of His divine presence, wrapped in the certainty of His unchanging love. The stars above seem to shine with special brightness, as if heaven itself is celebrating the covenant that continues to unfold in their lives. Abraham sits quietly in the shade of his tent, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the camp. His weathered hands rest gently on his knees as he watches his servants move about their daily tasks with practiced ease. The sound of sheep bleating in the distance mingles with the soft murmur of conversation among the women preparing the evening meal. Sarah approaches with measured steps, her own face showing the lines that come with years of hoping and waiting. She settles beside him without words, and together they watch the familiar rhythm of their household. There is a peacefulness in these moments, a quiet acceptance that has grown between them like a gentle stream wearing smooth stones. The promise of a son feels both close and distant, like a star that seems within reach yet remains fixed in the heavens. Abraham has learned to hold this tension without struggle, to let his faith rest in the steady presence of the Almighty, rather than in his own understanding of time and timing. A young servant boy runs past, his laughter echoing across the camp as he chases a lamb that has wandered from the flock. Sarah's eyes follow him with a tenderness that speaks of dreams deferred but not forgotten. Abraham reaches over and takes her hand, a gesture that carries the weight of shared faith and patient love. The evening breeze stirs the tent walls gently, bringing with it the scent of wild herbs and the distant sound of a shepherd's flute. In this moment, surrounded by the life they have built together, Abraham finds a deep contentment. The covenant remains, unchanging and sure, like the steady rhythm of his own heartbeat. The stars begin to appear one by one in the darkening sky, each one a reminder of the promise that spans generations. Abraham closes his eyes and lets the sounds of his camp wash over him, finding in their familiarity a profound sense of peace. Tomorrow will bring its own portion of waiting, its own quiet acts of faith, but tonight there is rest in the certainty of God's unchanging word. The ancient promise given to Abraham carried within it a blessing that would reach far beyond his own lineage. In the quiet of those desert nights, when the stars seemed to whisper of divine purposes, God had spoken words that would echo through countless generations. "Your descendants shall be as numerous as the stars," he had said, "and through them all the families of the earth shall be blessed." This covenant was not merely about one man or one people, but about God's heart for all humanity. Abraham's faithfulness would become a gateway through which divine love would flow to every corner of the earth. The promise held the gentle suggestion of a future where all nations would find their way to the same God who had called Abraham from Ur of the Chaldees. Imagine Abraham in those peaceful moments, perhaps sitting by his tent as the evening breeze stirred the desert sand, contemplating not just his own family, but the vast tapestry of peoples who would one day find blessing through his line. The weight of such a promise must have been both humbling and encouraging, knowing that his obedience would serve a purpose far greater than he could fully comprehend. The covenant spoke of a God whose love knows no boundaries, whose purposes encompass every tribe and tongue. through Abraham's seed would come, one who would gather the scattered children of earth back to their Creator's heart. In this way, the promise made to one man became hope for all mankind, a gentle light that would eventually illuminate every shadowed corner of the world. As you rest tonight, let this universal blessing wash over you like warm desert wind, knowing you too are part of this ancient promise. The covenant between God and Abraham settles into the quiet spaces of the heart, where promises take root and flourish in the stillness of trust. This sacred bond, established in the ancient hills of Canaan, becomes more than words spoken in a moment of time. It becomes the foundation upon which generations will build their understanding of divine faithfulness. In the gentle twilight hours, Abraham often reflects upon that remarkable day when God's presence filled the air around him with such tender certainty. The memory of the smoking furnace and burning torch moving between the divided animals returns to him like a peaceful dream, reminding him that this covenant was sealed not by his own efforts, but by God's gracious initiative. The promise of countless descendants seems to whisper through the evening breeze as Abraham walks among his flocks. Each star that appears in the darkening sky speaks of the mystery yet to unfold, of children and children's children who will carry this covenant forward through the centuries. The land beneath his feet, once foreign and unfamiliar, now feels like home in a deeper way, for it too is part of this sacred promise. Sarah, walking beside him in the cool evening air, shares in this quiet confidence. The covenant encompasses them both, weaving their lives together with threads of divine purpose. Their journey continues in the peaceful rhythm of daily life, sustained by the knowledge that God's promises endure beyond the passing of seasons and years. As night settles over the ancient landscape, the covenant rests like a gentle blessing upon all who call upon the name of the Lord. In this sacred bond, heaven and earth meet in perfect harmony, and the promise of blessing flows like a quiet stream through the generations, carrying hope and peace to all who believe. The promise given to Abraham begins to settle into the quiet spaces of his heart, like morning dew gathering on desert stones. In the gentle hours that follow God's covenant, Abraham sits beneath the shade of an ancient oak, its branches spreading wide like protective arms over the soft earth below. The wind carries whispers of generations yet to come, countless as the stars that had filled the night sky during that sacred moment. Each breath Abraham takes seems to hold the weight of blessing, the certainty of God's faithfulness flowing through him like a peaceful river finding its course through willing valleys. Sarah moves quietly through their dwelling, her steps soft on the woven rugs that cover the tent floor. She hums a melody passed down from her grandmother, a tune that speaks of journeys and homecomings, of promises planted deep in fertile ground. The afternoon light filters through the fabric walls, casting gentle patterns that dance and shift like living prayers. Their servants tend to the flocks with unhurried movements, the sheep grazing contentedly in pastures where wildflowers bloom in quiet abundance. The shepherd's staff taps rhythmically against the rocky ground, a sound that mingles with the distant bleating of lambs and the soft rustle of grass bending in the breeze. Abraham's eyes close as he remembers the smoking firepot and blazing torch that had passed between the pieces of the covenant sacrifice. The memory brings not fear, but a profound sense of peace, as if the very presence of the Almighty had left an invisible blessing upon the air itself. The sun begins its gentle descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. In this quiet moment, surrounded by the simple rhythms of pastoral life, the promise of God seems to pulse with the heartbeat of the earth itself, steady and sure, eternal and unchanging. Abraham rises before dawn breaks across the horizon, his movements deliberate and quiet in the pre-morning stillness. His weathered hands work steadily, gathering wood for the journey ahead, each piece selected with care and purpose. Isaac stirs in his tent, awakening to the soft sounds of preparation. The young man emerges to find his father loading provisions onto their donkey, the animal standing patiently as bundles are secured to its back. Two servants move quietly about their tasks, their footsteps muffled in the sandy earth. The small party sets out as the first light touches the distant hills, their path winding through valleys dotted with olive trees and wild herbs. Abraham walks with measured steps, his eyes fixed on the horizon where Mount Moriah waits, 3 days distant. The rhythm of their journey creates a gentle cadence, the soft padding of feet on ancient paths, the occasional low bray of the donkey, the whispered conversations that drift and fade. Isaac walks beside his father, occasionally glancing at the older man's face, seeing something there he cannot quite understand. The landscape unfolds around them like a tapestry woven from earth and sky, each ridge and valley familiar yet somehow different under the weight of this particular journey. As evening approaches on the first day, they make camp beside a small stream where the water runs clear over smooth stones. Abraham builds a fire with practiced ease, the flames casting dancing shadows on the rocky ground. The servants tend to the donkey and spread their sleeping mats while Isaac gathers additional wood for the night. The fire crackles softly as they share their evening meal, the conversation gentle and sparse. Above them, stars begin to appear one by one, ancient lights bearing witness to this quiet progression toward the mountain of God's choosing. The morning light filters gently through the tent flaps as Abraham rises with purpose in his heart. The promise God has spoken still echoes in his mind, each word precious as gold. Today he will build an altar, a place of worship and remembrance where earth meets heaven. His weathered hands gather stones from the hillside, each one chosen with care. The smooth river rocks feel cool beneath his fingers as he arranges them in a circle, creating a sacred space where he will offer his gratitude to the Almighty. The work is slow and deliberate, each stone placed with reverence. Sarah watches from the doorway of their tent, her eyes soft with understanding. She has seen her husband build altars before, but this one feels different. There is a quiet joy in his movements, a peace that settles over their entire camp like morning dew. The servants move about their daily tasks with hushed voices, sensing the holiness of the moment. Even the animals seem to graze more quietly, as if the very air holds something sacred. Abraham's hands work steadily, building up the walls of his altar stone by stone. As the sun climbs higher, the altar takes shape. It stands modest yet beautiful against the backdrop of rolling hills, a testament to one man's faith in God's promises. Abraham steps back, wiping his brow, and surveys his work with satisfaction. Here, in this simple structure of earth and stone, Abraham has created a meeting place with the divine. The altar stands ready, waiting for the offering that will seal his covenant with the Lord. The gentle breeze carries the scent of wild herbs across the hillside, and Abraham feels the presence of God drawing near. His heart is full, his spirit at rest, knowing that the God who makes promises is faithful to keep them. The afternoon sun casts long shadows across the camp as Abraham walks among his tents, his heart heavy with the weight of recent events. The dust settles gently around his feet as he moves slowly, contemplating the words the Lord has spoken to him. In the quiet spaces between his thoughts, there is a growing awareness of something profound taking place in his spirit. Sarah emerges from her tent, her movement graceful despite the years that have passed since their journey began. She watches her husband with understanding eyes, knowing that the Lord has been speaking to him again. The wind carries the scent of evening fires beginning to kindle throughout the camp, and servants move quietly about their duties, preparing for the night ahead. The flocks have been brought in from the pastures, their gentle bleating creating a peaceful chorus that mingles with the soft voices of the shepherds. Abraham pauses near the well, looking out across the land that stretches endlessly toward the horizon. The promise of the Lord echoes in his mind, bringing with it a deep sense of reverence and wonder. As the first stars begin to appear in the darkening sky, Abraham feels the familiar stirring in his heart that comes when the Lord is near. The campfires cast a warm glow across the faces of his household, and there is a sense of anticipation in the air, as if creation itself is holding its breath in expectation of what is to come. The gentle evening breeze carries with it the sounds of the night creatures beginning their quiet songs. Abraham closes his eyes and breathes deeply, allowing the peace of the moment to wash over him. In this sacred stillness, he prepares his heart to receive whatever the Lord would speak to him, knowing that each word will be precious and life-giving. The mercy of the Lord surrounds them like a protective covering, gentle and constant as the stars that watch over their camp through the long hours of the night. The promise settles deep into Abraham's heart, like gentle rain soaking into fertile ground. In the quiet hours that follow, he finds himself walking through his encampment with new eyes, seeing not just what is, but what will be. The tents of his household stretch before him, each one representing a soul under his care, each one a small light in the vast darkness of the ancient world. Sarah moves through their dwelling with graceful purpose, her hands skilled in the daily rhythms of their nomadic life. There is something different in her manner now, a subtle shift that speaks of inner contemplation. The promise of a son has touched her spirit too, though she carries the weight of long years and the mystery of God's timing. The servants go about their evening tasks with quiet efficiency. Some tend to the animals, their gentle voices soothing the sheep and goats as they settle for the night. Others prepare the simple meal that will nourish the household, their movements practiced and peaceful. The sound of grinding grain mingles with soft conversation, creating a symphony of domestic tranquility. Abraham pauses near the cooking fires, watching the flames dance against the darkening sky. Each flame reminds him of the stars he counted, each ember a small echo of the great promise burning within his heart. The smoke rises upward, carrying with it the prayers and hopes of his people, drifting toward the heavens like incense before the throne of the Most High. A young shepherd approaches, his face lit by the firelight, carrying news of the flocks. His voice is respectful, his manner reverent toward the patriarch who has walked with God. Abraham listens with patient attention, understanding that faithful stewardship of small things prepares the heart for greater responsibilities. The night air carries the scent of bread baking, a fragrance that speaks of provision and blessing. Somewhere in the distance, a mother hums a lullaby to her child, the melody weaving through the camp like a thread of gold. These are the sounds of life continuing, of faith expressed through faithful living, of promises taking root in the soil of ordinary days. As the evening deepens, Abraham's heart overflows with gratitude for the covenant that now binds him to the eternal God, knowing that faithfulness in the present moment is the foundation upon which all future blessings rest. The descendants of Abraham flow like gentle streams through the valleys of time, carrying the promise forward through generations. Isaac grows into a man of quiet faith, his footsteps following the well-worn paths his father walked. The covenant passes to him like a precious inheritance, and the land continues to know the presence of those chosen by the Almighty. Jacob, Isaac's son, receives the blessing in turn, his name changed to Israel after wrestling with the divine messenger in the stillness of night. 12 sons are born to him, each one a future tribe, each one carrying within their hearts the echo of that first promise made to Abraham beneath the stars. The family grows, multiplies, and eventually journeys to Egypt during years of famine, where they become a great nation, just as God foretold. Through centuries of bondage and eventual freedom, through wilderness wanderings and triumphant returns to the promised land, the covenant remains unbroken, a golden thread woven through the tapestry of history. Kings rise and fall, temples are built and rebuilt, prophets speak of coming redemption, and still the promise endures. The land Abraham once walked as a stranger becomes the inheritance of his children, just as the Lord declared it would be. Cities flourish where once there were only olive groves and ancient oaks, yet the memory of that first altar, that first sacrifice, that first moment of divine encounter remains sacred in the hearts of the faithful. The covenant with Abraham becomes the foundation upon which all future promises rest, a cornerstone of faith that will never crumble, a testament to the faithfulness of God that echoes through eternity, like the gentle whisper of wind through wheat fields at harvest time. The promise spoken over Abraham extends far beyond his own lifetime, reaching into generations yet unborn. In the quiet moments of evening prayer, Abraham contemplates the magnitude of what God has declared, not merely a son, but nations. Not simply descendants, but a people chosen to carry forward the covenant through time. Sarah, too, finds herself changed by this divine encounter. The laughter that once escaped her lips when she overheard the promise has transformed into something deeper, a recognition that the God who spoke the world into existence can surely fulfill what seems impossible to mortal understanding. Her steps carry a new lightness as she moves through their tent, preparing for the arrival of the child who will bridge the present with an eternal future. There is a peace that settles over the household like morning dew, refreshing and life-giving. Conversations are gentler, decisions made with greater wisdom, and the daily rhythms of nomadic life flow with renewed purpose. Even the animals seem to sense the blessing that rests upon this family. Under starlit skies, Abraham often walks the boundaries of their camp, his heart full of wonder at the faithfulness of the Almighty. Each star seems to whisper of the promise, each grain of sand beneath his feet a reminder of the multitude that will spring from his lineage. Isaac, the child of laughter and promise, grows within Sarah's womb as the covenant grows within their hearts. Through him, blessing will flow to all nations, and the earth itself will be transformed by the faithfulness of the God who keeps his word across the generations. The promise of multiplication settles over this sacred ground like morning dew, each word from the Almighty carrying the weight of countless generations yet to come. Abraham stands in the gentle quietude, his heart expanding with the magnitude of what has been spoken over his life. The God who hung these celestial bodies in their places speaks of descendants as numerous as these very stars, and his words carry the power to bring forth life from the most unlikely circumstances. Sarah's laughter still echoes softly in the distance, a sound that will soon transform from doubt to pure joy. The promise touches her life as well, bringing with it the restoration of hope that had long been set aside. In the quiet of this moment, the future begins to take shape, invisible yet certain. The covenant reaches beyond Abraham and Sarah to encompass nations and kingdoms, blessing flowing like a gentle river that will water generations of families. Each promised blessing carries within it the seeds of fulfillment, waiting for the appointed time to bloom. The evening air grows cooler, carrying with it the scent of possibility. Abraham breathes deeply, his soul absorbing not just the night air, but the very breath of divine promise. The God who counts the stars has counted every descendant, every blessing, every moment of joy that will spring from this covenant. In this peaceful stillness, multiplication becomes more than a concept. It becomes a living reality woven into the fabric of faith itself. The promise settles into Abraham's heart like seeds finding fertile ground, ready to grow in ways that will surpass even his blessed imagination. The promise unfolds like morning mist rising from fertile valleys, carrying with it the sweet fragrance of abundance. This land that God speaks of to Abraham is not merely soil and stone, but a realm where divine blessing flows like gentle streams through verdant meadows. The phrase itself whispers of richness beyond measure, milk and honey, sustenance and sweetness combined in perfect harmony. Picture the rolling hills dotted with grazing flocks, their bells chiming softly in the evening breeze. The goats and sheep wander peaceful paths, their milk rich and nourishing, flowing white as clouds against the azure sky. In quiet moments, shepherds guide their charges to shaded groves where ancient olive trees spread their silver-green branches wide, offering rest from the warmth of day. And there, nestled in rocky crevices and hollow logs, the honeybees work their quiet magic. Their gentle humming creates a lullaby that drifts across fields of wildflowers, purple lavender, golden chamomile, and white jasmine that perfumes the air with its delicate sweetness. The honey they create is liquid gold, thick and amber, tasting of sunshine and summer meadows. This is the inheritance God envisions for Abraham's descendants, not just a place to dwell, but a sanctuary where abundance grows from the earth itself. Where families gather around wooden tables laden with warm bread drizzled with honey, where children sleep peacefully knowing tomorrow will bring the same gentle plenty. The land flows with these gifts as naturally as rivers flow toward the sea, an endless cycle of divine provision that speaks to God's tender care for his chosen people. In this place, every sunrise brings renewal, every season its own quiet blessings. The covenant God establishes with Abraham reaches beyond the boundaries of time itself, stretching into eternity like the endless expanse of desert stars. In this sacred moment, the Almighty speaks not merely of temporary promises, but of an everlasting bond that will endure through countless generations yet to come. Abraham stands in the cool evening air, his weathered hands trembling slightly as he comprehends the magnitude of what God is declaring. This is no ordinary agreement between men, sealed with handshakes and witnessed by neighbors. This is the Creator of all things binding himself to a mortal man and his descendants with bonds that cannot be broken by time, circumstance, or even human failure. The word eternal echoes in Abraham's mind like a gentle bell, its meaning slowly unfolding like a flower at dawn. His children's children, and their children after them, will inherit not just land or livestock, but a relationship with the living God that transcends the ordinary boundaries of human existence. The covenant will flow like a quiet river through the centuries, carrying with it the promises of blessing, protection, and divine presence. As Abraham contemplates this eternal dimension of God's covenant, he feels a profound sense of responsibility settling upon his shoulders like a soft mantle. He is not merely receiving promises for himself, but becoming the vessel through which God's eternal purposes will flow into the world. The desert wind whispers through the camp, carrying with it the scent of distant rain and the promise of new growth. Abraham closes his eyes and breathes deeply, allowing the reality of God's eternal covenant to settle into the depths of his soul, like seeds finding their home in fertile soil. In the gentle silence that follows, Abraham understands that he has become part of something far greater than himself, woven into the eternal tapestry of God's unfolding plan for humanity. The covenant will outlast mountains and seas, enduring when empires crumble and kingdoms fade into memory. Abraham's faith becomes like a steady flame in the quiet of evening, burning with gentle certainty even when the path ahead remains shrouded in mystery. The promises God has spoken seem impossible to human understanding, yet something deep within Abraham's spirit recognizes their truth. In the peaceful hours before dawn, when the world rests in that sacred silence between night and morning, Abraham finds himself contemplating the vastness of what God has promised. A son from his own body, descendants as numerous as the stars, a land flowing with milk and honey. These words echo softly in his heart like a mother's lullaby. The faith that grows within him is not the kind that shouts or demands proof. It is quiet and patient, like seeds resting in rich soil through the long winter months, trusting that spring will surely come. Abraham does not need to see the fulfillment to believe in its certainty. His trust flows as naturally as a gentle stream finding its way to the sea. Around him, the household continues its peaceful rhythms. Sarah moves through her daily tasks with graceful efficiency. The servants tend to their duties with quiet contentment. The flocks graze in green pastures, and the evening fires cast their warm glow across the encampment. But within Abraham's spirit, something profound is taking root. This faith that God has awakened in him will become a foundation upon which generations will build. It is not built on what he can see or touch, but on the character of the one who has spoken these promises into existence. The stars above seem to whisper their own ancient song of faithfulness, each one a testament to the Creator's power to bring forth life from the darkness of space. And in the gentle rhythm of his breathing, Abraham finds himself perfectly aligned with the eternal purposes of heaven. The same stars that witnessed God's promise to Abraham continue their silent vigil above the ancient lands of Canaan. Night after night, they shine with the same gentle radiance, unchanging markers in the vast expanse of heaven. Each point of light carries within it the echo of that sacred moment when the Lord invited Abraham to step outside his tent and gaze upward. In the soft darkness, we can almost hear the whisper of desert wind through the camp, the quiet breathing of sleeping flocks, the distant call of a night bird. Abraham's tent stands peacefully in the moonlight, its goat-hair walls swaying gently in the evening breeze. Inside, Sarah rests deeply, her breathing steady and calm, while her husband lies beside her, his heart filled with the wonder of God's promises. The covenant has been made, sealed not with human ceremony, but with divine fire passing between the sacrificial pieces. The memory of that sacred flame still glows warmly in Abraham's thoughts as he drifts towards sleep. He knows now, with certainty deeper than knowledge, that the Lord's word will not return empty. The stars themselves bear witness to this truth. Somewhere in the distance, a shepherd's flute plays a gentle melody, its notes floating across the sleeping encampment like a lullaby. The sound mingles with the soft bleating of contented sheep, the rustle of palm fronds, and the quiet crackling of dying embers from the evening fires. All of nature seems to rest in the peace of God's presence. The moon travels its ancient path across the star-filled sky, casting silvery light over the land that will one day belong to Abraham's descendants. But tonight, in this moment of profound quiet, the promise is enough. The future stretches ahead like a river of blessing, and Abraham sleeps deeply, trusting in the faithfulness of the God who called him from Ur of the Chaldees. Even the night sounds seem to whisper of covenant and promise, carrying the soul gently toward rest in the shelter of divine love. Abraham's heart settles into a rhythm of deep trust as the years unfold in gentle succession. The covenant, God sealed with him, becomes like a steady heartbeat, pulsing quietly through each ordinary day. There is something profoundly restful about walking in the certainty of divine promise, even when that promise stretches beyond the horizon of immediate sight. The flocks graze peacefully in the valleys around Hebron, their soft bleating carrying on warm breezes. Sarah moves through their daily routines with a quiet grace, her steps lighter somehow, as if she too feels the weight of God's faithfulness settling around them like a comfortable blanket. The servants go about their tasks with unhurried efficiency, sensing the atmosphere of peace that has descended upon their household. In the evenings, Abraham often stands beneath the vast canopy of stars, remembering God's words about his descendants. The promise feels closer now, more tangible, though he cannot say exactly why. Perhaps it is simply that his faith has grown deeper, like roots finding water in dry ground. The stars seem to shimmer with gentle reassurance, each point of light a reminder of covenant faithfulness. The ancient oaks of Mamre whisper softly in the night breeze, their branches swaying in slow, hypnotic rhythms. Abraham listens to their gentle murmur and finds his own breathing falling into harmony with creation's peaceful song. This is what it means to rest in God's promises. Not the absence of waiting, but the presence of trust that transforms waiting into worship. Sleep comes easily now, carried on the wings of certainty that God's word endures forever. The covenant, written in divine faithfulness, becomes a lullaby that soothes the soul into perfect rest.